Randall Munroe's How To combines wit, humor, and science to answer questions we didn't even know we had, all while demonstrating how ridiculous or impractical some solutions to everyday problems can be. Through this book, Munroe explores a variety of common scenarios, offering absurd, scientifically grounded answers to seemingly simple tasks. The book's tone is lighthearted, often leaning into satire, but beneath that humor is a deep understanding of science and engineering. The result is a quirky and highly entertaining read. Here's a more detailed breakdown of what you can expect in the book. 1. Introduction to the absurd. The book begins with the premise that, when faced with an ordinary task, we might be tempted to overcomplicate it using scientific methods. Munroe posits that such an approach can lead to hilariously impractical solutions. He introduces the idea of applying extreme science to everyday problems, focusing on the outcomes of such approaches, which often reveal more about the physical world than the tasks themselves. 2. Structure and chapters. Each chapter tackles a different type of problem, offering step-by-step guides for solutions. These scenarios range from the mundane to the outrageous. Some examples of problems Munroe solves are: how to build a treehouse. Munroe takes a scientific approach to designing the perfect treehouse, but his solution involves scaling up to the absurd level of creating a super sturdy structure supported by elaborate and complex engineering principles, including potentially defying gravity. How to predict the weather. Instead of relying on weather forecasts, Munroe suggests building a massive weather tower to gather precise, localized data, calculating the impossibility of such an endeavor, and exploring the engineering challenges of collecting weather data in a much more extreme way than anyone would reasonably attempt. How to play the piano. Munroe imagines a situation where playing the piano could be solved by developing a contraption that involves a lot more energy and precision than a human musician would need. This includes absurd methods of amplification, wiring, and human-machine interaction. How to move a house. Rather than simply calling a moving company, Munroe speculates on the scientific principles needed to physically lift a house using giant balloons, explaining the principles of buoyancy, volume, and weight distribution. This chapter showcases the challenges and calculations required for such a feat. 3. Scientific explanations behind the absurdities. While the solutions Munroe proposes are clearly impractical, he takes the time to explain the science behind them in a detailed and approachable way. For instance, when explaining how to build a lava moat for home protection, Munroe dives deep into the science of lava's temperature, the logistical challenges of transporting molten rock, and the complex systems of heat exchange that would make such a moat extremely difficult and dangerous to maintain. In chapters on designing elaborate machines for simple tasks, he tackles physics concepts like energy efficiency, mechanics, thermodynamics, and material science, all while explaining how they would apply to his outlandish ideas. 4. Humor and illustrations. Munroe's use of humor is central to the book's appeal. The author's signature stick-figure illustrations add to the comedic tone. These illustrations, though simple, visually represent the impracticalities of the solutions, making the absurdity of his proposals even clearer. The drawings are often paired with commentary that amplifies the silliness of each scenario. For example, when explaining how to use a trebuchet to transport groceries, the book features a stick figure drawing of a person trying to aim a giant sling with a cart full of groceries inside, creating a humorous image that emphasizes the madness of using medieval war machines for mundane tasks. 5. Underlying themes. Despite the humor, there are several deeper themes explored in How To. Scientific curiosity. The book encourages readers to think about problems from a scientific standpoint, even if the solutions are exaggerated or absurd. Munroe's method shows how a curious mindset can lead to interesting, if impractical, conclusions. The power of engineering and physics. Throughout the book, Munroe demonstrates how even the most ridiculous scenarios are rooted in real scientific concepts. He often highlights the immense complexity of tasks and how science and engineering intersect in our everyday lives, albeit in a much more achievable form than his suggested solutions. The limits of human ingenuity. Munroe also subtly points out the limits of human ability in how some ideas, while scientifically possible, are practically impossible or impractical. The book's humor lies in showing how our drive for innovation and problem-solving sometimes leads us to ideas that are completely out of touch with reality. 6. Final thoughts and reflections. The book ends with a reflection on the absurdity of human ingenuity. Munroe suggests that while it's important to aim for better solutions to problems, it's equally important to recognize when our ideas go too far. He concludes that sometimes the most effective solutions are the simplest ones, even if that means not overthinking them to the extreme. Conclusion. How To is a celebration of science and humor, presented through the lens of absurdity. Randall Munroe doesn't just present impractical ideas, he uses them as a vehicle to explore complex scientific concepts in an accessible and humorous way. It's a book for anyone who enjoys looking at the world with curiosity and creativity, all while laughing at the far-fetched ways we might solve our everyday problems.